What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Steps Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals with Indiana trailing Boston 1-0 and trying to even the series tonight. Fun game of basketball last night, competitive down to the wire, just like Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So the Conference Finals are off to a pretty good start here. Mike Gallagher, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, digging through the game from last night, and man, just Dallas had so much going on. And I think the thing that stuck out to me most was how they flipped their whole game plan. Like we saw just massive spot up shooting in the OKC series, 32 spot up plays per game in the last five, only 19 of them. So they were like, okay, let's go on ball all day against the Wolves of all teams. So yeah, they just said, hey, we're going to do our thing. And they, just massive credit to the Mavericks last night. Really big win. But we'll see if the Wolves have more energy. I thought that they definitely came out flat. And the whole Game 7 thing, I think certainly came into play here for their lack of energy. Talked about it more on the pod with you this morning. So yeah, you guys can check that out when it comes out.
Yeah, it's out on the YouTube channel. So after this short video recapping the injury question marks for today, you can pop on over to our breakdown of Game 1s for both Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals on this YouTube channel video feed available. Podcast coming later to iTunes and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, as it's in editing from an audio perspective. But the video feed is already up. Mike, let's get into Game 2 here for Indiana and Boston. On the injury front, Indiana is stable. Just Benedict Mathurin still out here. No other injury notes. You highlighted going into Game 1 the potential to cut down to 8. They did that in the second half. What are your expectations tonight for Indiana?
Did want to just note TJ McConnell kind of hurt himself, hurt his back, was grabbing at it, banged the floor really hard. Was grabbing it a little bit throughout the game, but looks fine, not listed. He's going to play, obviously, but just something to keep an eye on since this is an injury analysis show. And then Tyrese Halliburton still has the wrap that he's been sporting on the bench, still bothering him a little bit, but obviously he's been playing really well. Jump shooting was insane. The 2 buzzer beaters were really just a huge thing and almost won the game overall. So, yeah, I thought the Isaiah Jackson minutes were pretty good. Like he had a pretty good defensive play on Jason Tatum. As much as I enjoyed being right about that, like I think it was kind of wrong to do that. So I actually kind of think it might go back to him. Jalen Smith, like that 1 minute, they were like, okay, yep, this is not it. So I kind of think they might go back to Isaiah Jackson here. And then like kind of thinking through Rick Carlisle, I think he's a guy who he talked about how they made so many mistakes late, and a pretty common thought for coaches is like, oh my God, my guys are just tired. You get tired, you make more mistakes. So I think by lengthening his rotation, maybe that could kind of cut the minutes down because they were pretty sharp down the stretch of a lot of games in the New York series. So yeah, I kind of think Isaiah Jackson actually comes back to life here. We'll talk more about that later on the DFS show, but yeah. And then, that we could talk about the matchup. We'll save that overall, but Nesmith gave him a ton, fouled out. And then when he fouled out, that's when Tatum went on. All 10 of Tatum's overtime points were after Nesmith fouled out. Should mention the first 2 points he scored were on the Nesmith foul out. So kind of his fault, but hey, it's still after for the cool stat factor. But mostly good to go here. Anything you wanted to add on these guys?
No, I think I'm still holding hope for the Jalen Smith stuff, even though the 1 minute really went poorly. But we'll see. Their offense was fine, and as long as their offense is fine, then Jalen Smith doesn't really have any purpose out there. So that's the key for them, is they're generating good shots and good opportunities. I'm waiting for Boston's defense to step up a notch and then see kind of what happens there. But also Isaiah Jackson, like I agree with you that they generally like playing deeper in. They've done that all playoffs, and if they're commenting on the idea of like guys making mistakes down the stretch, they're coming off an overtime game, they're coming off a Game 7, then an overtime game, it does make sense to potentially lengthen things back out to 9 tonight. We'll see if they do that. Obviously, huge game in terms of going to big difference going down 2-0 versus 1-1 going back home. All right, Boston side of things, Kristaps Porzingis remains out with that right soleus strain as expected here. Maybe some hope that there would be a progression to a doubtful tag or something like that just in advance here, but still listed out. Hopeful for middle of the series return. We'll see if that happens. We'll see also if that's impacted by the score in the series as well in terms of Boston's approach on all this stuff. The big news for this game, which there's not a lot of big news to cover on the injury side of things, but Xavier Tillman will be back available with the team. He was absent due to personal reasons, the loss of his father. He's back with the team and listed as available tonight. Available doesn't always mean that you're going to play. He certainly could still He, like not fully up to speed on game plan or different things, or distracted, like with all the life stuff going on. But generally, a lot of people find solace in being kind of on the floor and competing and getting away from sort of what's going on in your personal life to have a place that's safe and to operate there. We saw Luke Cornett struggle in his minutes, even though he's a +2 in the plus minus. That's a little bit deceiving there in the way that he played in those minutes. So what are your thoughts on how the availability of Xavier Tillman potentially impacts things tonight?
So yeah, let's talk about Luke Cornett and the Xavier Tillman factor. So in the first half, like I said in the podcast, if you saw the 18 first half minutes of Miles Turner, your first instinct was like, oh man, he must have took it to Horford. He didn't take it to Horford. He didn't really even get guarded by Horford that much. 14 of his 18 first half points were 9 minutes of Luke Cornett minutes. They had Turner out there for all the minutes that Luke Cornett was out there. That changed significantly in the second half. They only overlapped for 2 minutes and change. So I think Cornett's going to have it, but I think they're going to hide him because that Cornett drop coverage doesn't work against Turner. Turner is one of the hottest three-point shooters in the playoffs. He just can't miss right now. So I think that's pretty much a top-line item of how they're going to make sure that they have their center minutes line up, whether that means Horford coming out earlier, whatever the case. I think that's, again, just like a clear rotation adjustment they have to make to avoid that because obviously Isaiah Jackson is not a floor spacer. So I think that's like way cleaner. So if they do that, I think they're okay. So my point here is I think Cornet's okay, but if they, if that doesn't go well in the first half, say Indiana does something that maybe they weren't seeing coming, maybe Tillman sneaks in there, as you mentioned. I think it's a little bit unlikely. And then one other note too that we talked about in our Slack, it's important to note that Al Horford was guarding Siakam. So from a defensive perspective, quote unquote, he's a power forward, right? That's what Siakam is. So if you're going to sub him out and use him like that, maybe they put Tillman as a 4, which would kind of cut out Sam Hauser, who's been awful. And we've mentioned it. He was like the worst DFS play on the slate, we said. And yeah, he didn't do anything. So I think that's possible. So I think Xavier Tillman has passed for either Hauser or Cornett. I think Cornett's actually safer because he's been pretty good. And maybe just chalk it up to a bad game. And they could, again, a scheme out of that. So yeah, no injuries to talk about really besides KP, who's in a good mental state and looks like they're targeting game 4 now. Will be interesting to see if he could maybe come up for 3 if they need to. But yeah, injuries are good. Obviously, Tatum was awesome in overtime. Jaylen Brown really pretty aggressive. Drew Holiday just unbelievably good. Killed Tyrese Halliburton with 13 potential assists. His drives were up. Everything was just he was a roll man. He was a cutter, post ups. Like I said, matchups. He was like a power forward for how he was used on offense. So yeah, should be good to go. We'll see. And I'm very curious, as we talked about in the pod, do you put Halliburton on him again? I kind of think they don't. So that's probably the first thing definitely the first thing I'm going to watch when the ball tips today.
All right. That will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, we appreciate all your guys' support. Yesterday was the big day. We did it. As Mike is showing behind in his background there, we hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Appreciate all your support in helping us get there. No one move. Nobody move. Nobody unsubscribe. You got to stay subscribed. We got to get through the rest of the season at 5,000 plus for us to get our accreditation from the bosses, from Taylor and Adam. You'll see Adam waving his towel later on in support of our 5,000. But appreciate all you guys for supporting the show and the content here. As I noted, our podcast that we recorded this morning is already up on the YouTube channel, so you can take a look at that and get yourself ready for the game 2s. We broke down everything that we saw in games 1 in both the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. If you're interested in checking out any of our content that is Showdown specific, behind the paywall tonight, myself and Mike Gallagher at 5 o'clock Eastern time will break down game 2 of Indy and Boston from a DFS Showdown specific approach. Good chalk, the bad chalk, the contrarian plays, of course, the flag plants, and just in general, roster construction, all the good stuff on how to break down Showdown. So we'll be there, establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA if you're interested in more details on our premium product offerings. And as always, if you're interested in keeping this show free heading into next season, the best way to do so is by smashing that like button, feeding that algorithm, helping us continue to garner subscribers and get this content pushed out to everybody else around the interweb. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm. That helps feed our families, allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your lineups and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.